Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, welcome to my live stream, episode 399. It's like almost 2 in the morning. I usually wouldn't be streaming this late because I don't want to wake people up, but oddly enough, I can kill 3 birds with 1 stone on this live stream. One is for my class, one of my classes that I'm taking in college, I'm supposed to fulfill for EDTE 4200 for my teacher, Tom Carnes. He wants us to do a live screencast. So that's stone 1, or that's bird 1, right? Bird number 2 is I haven't live streamed in a while, so it's an excuse to live stream. And bird number 3, I have revisions I have to do for a client. And so what we're supposed to do for EDTE 4200 is basically show a screen share where we basically would be able to walk people through a process, for a classroom and stuff like that. So I thought it would be cool to just live stream and walk you guys through the process of revising an illustration for a client. So let's get into it. What we're going to do is basically do some drawings of ants. So my friend Corey Kerr, if you're watching this after the fact, you'll be stoked because I'm drawing some bugs for a client. The client is No Starch Press. They're a really great client that I've had for a while. They do a lot of books that you can buy that kind of teach you how to do Python and programming and a lot of, I think what they call like white hat hacking kind of stuff. And they're a great publisher. And they're a really good client. They pay fair. They give really good directions. They appreciate my art. I appreciate their what they're doing, and they're just really good, ethical company. So, with that being said, let's get to the screen share. So here it is. Boom. All right. So I have Photoshop opened up right now. You also might notice I'm wearing glasses. That's probably strange, right? 399 episodes. You guys have never seen me wear glasses. That's because I'm old and I just got a prescription, and it's been pretty magical because I didn't realize for about the last 5 years I've been seeing everything blurry. So anyhow, that's fun. Let me correct this. This is supposed to be a camera here to show you my Wacom. So let's go ahead and correct that. Okay. I do this to show you guys that you don't need fancy art materials to kind of work on art. You can have a cheapo, pretty much like a bad Wacom tablet and still kind of create art. Okay, so what we have here is my rough for my client. Just to let you guys know, since this is supposed to be a screen share kind of as an example of teaching, when you get hired to do an illustration for a client, it's often quite nice to go through a stage called roughs, where you roughly, very loosely sketch out, obviously not like final art, but just a rough idea of what the final art would look like. In this case, the client wanted me to draw ants putting together a specific type of processing chip, I think. And so they're putting together all the components of this. Now, the advantage of doing roughs like this is they're fairly quick. They're a little more time consuming than like what thumbnails would be, which is like a really quick sketch. But it allows the client to look at your art without you having put in a ton of time investment and them having to invest a ton of money, because time is money with illustration. Like, people pay you, right? And you're working. And so it saves everybody a lot of time to do roughs where you can get a visual idea of where we're heading and see if we're both on the same page with the direction. It helps you come up with multiple ideas, multiple concepts, and then it helps the client kind of come up with revisions that don't kill you because they're not super time consuming. So this was first stage of rough for this particular cover. If you want to see other covers I've done for them, you can check out their website. I'd encourage you guys to support their company. I've done a bunch of covers for them, mostly robots, which is super fun. So it's a no starch press. But anyhow, so what we're doing now is we're revising. They wanted less ants, which I'm actually glad about, because I was a little worried because it seemed like they wanted a lot of ants putting together the components. And I do think it's distracting to have so many characters or ants. And then they also wanted me to add a little bit of expression to the ants. So I have to kind of cartoon the ants a little more, which is kind of good. Cartooning's fun. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through kind of how you can do that. Let me adjust a couple things here. That's very strange. Now, why is this? Interesting. Well, okay. Let's get going. Okay, so here we go. So what I have here, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these layers. These layers are all previous jobs I've done for the client. It has the color palettes. There's 3 specific colors they like to use on their books. So I have the color palettes kind of preset. What's nice is I have all 3 of those colors on this rough, so I don't need those anymore. I also had reference photos. Let's see, show you the reference photos. This is what I was using to draw the ant, right? This gives you a rough idea of what I was working from. And then the rest are all just like previous roughs. Like here, I'll show you real quick. The rest of these layers, like here's a previous rough that I did for them, which is what ended up being a book cover for them, which was pretty cool. It was like a robot listening to a radio. So anyhow, so you've done your rough. You get feedback from your client. Change this. I'm going to show you guys a couple things. One is when you build your files, you always want to make sure you have your color, your line, and then your shading on separate things, because it's a lot easier, like on separate layers in Photoshop. It's a lot easier to edit when I can take out the shading and just look at my line work, right? So the shading and color were kind of for the client, and then also for me to be able to look at the final and kind of figure out what I'm going to do, because eventually I'm going to be finishing this in Illustrator, because this is a rough, right? This is a rough. Once the rough is approved, then we'll do a final project on Illustrator. If you want, I think you can look at the last live stream, which was episode 398, where I make a vintage robot. I think it's called Drawing a Vintage Robot and the Meme Country Giveaway. So anyhow, okay. That'll show you kind of the second process after the rough is approved. So here's the thing. What I need to do here is edit my line, and then I will redo the shading and the color to kind of better reflect that, which is good, because like part of the issue I had with the first rough was that there were so many ants, such a minimal color palette. And with minimal color palettes with a lot of complex detail, their specific palette wasn't really friendly to this piece. So I'm hoping this will improve it. So let's get rid of some of the ants I don't like. There's a couple of ants I'm not super fond of, like one here who's kind of hiding behind here. I'm just going to use the selection tool. I'm on my line layer. I'm going to go ahead and select it with my selection tool using my lasso tool in Photoshop on my line layer. I'm going to make sure that I have my layer unlocked, and then I'm going to delete, and voila, we have one thing. Now I'm not worried about doing this super cleanly, because what I want to do is we're going to eliminate some of the ants, then we're going to resize some of the ants, then we're going to kind of fix the drawing. So this is kind of one of the advantages to working digitally, is you can sketch it all out using a Wacom tablet, or if you're, more modern than me, the old man with glasses, then you can basically use an iPad to kind of sketch this out, or a Wacom tablet with a screen, which I personally, I'm just too accustomed to using an old school Wacom tablet. I find it much easier than a screen tablet, which is weird because I like working traditionally. I teach a lot of traditional art nowadays, a lot of the foundations. So I'm going to just find my weakest ants. I think this guy, since he's looking directly at us, he's not doing much. So I'm going to get rid of this dude too. They're not bad ants, right? The nice thing about having a reference like this ant is once you can see that ant, you can kind of figure out the components and the size and the shape of the ants and kind of sketch it out based on the size and shape of, the anatomy. And the nice thing about ants is they're segmented, and so they're not super complicated to draw. How many ants is too few? They said get rid of a few ants. Hold on, let me see the notes from the client. This is always good when you're working on a rough. Look at your client notes. And they say, we'd like to see a few less ants. Also, would you be able to give their faces a bit of character, but not too cartoony? That's the feedback. So that's going to be the tough part with drawing ants, because it is like you can always do the cartoon. Here, I'll show you real quick what you could do for the cartoon version. You could always like sketch out, a cartoon ant head. Maybe it's let's see. Maybe it's little, yeah, maybe we do like a, haha. You know what I mean? You could even kind of give him like big bug eyes, or does that make sense? Like that would be a real easy kind of cartoon ant head. That's a terrible drawing, but that gives you a rough idea of, I could add cartoon head, but we don't necessarily want to do that. So I'm going to work on that, simplifying and adding expression in a second. Right now, let's just resize the ants. So another thing I'm going to do now that I've deleted the parts that I don't want is I'm going to grab the ants that I want to resize, because this is all on one layer. It was just a sketch. So if this were a physical thing, I'd be like cutting these out of paper and then taking them to a photocopy machine and enlarging them, or just drawing them again. Nice thing about Photoshop and working digitally is we can just select them, resize them. So I'm going to take my remaining ants. They're all somewhat in proportion with each other. Oh, I should also do something really important. We're going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call this Designing Electronics 2. That's what this is a cover for. So, we're going to select our ants. Some of these, obviously, I need to fill out, like that ant. I had to erase his legs. Some of these are real sloppy now. That's okay. Sloppy's fine. Select my ants, and we're going to resize them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut them. I'm going to lock my layer that was there before. I'm going to paste these on top. I'm going to lock the layer, the transparent pixels. And for now, just so we can see the ants more clearly, I'm going to make them a separate color. So I'll probably make them like a pure, let's make them a pure magenta. Magenta always stands out really well over black, so that we can see the ants we're working with. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is basically increase the size of the ants and kind of find a place for them. Maybe I'll put them all on their own layer. So let's find a good spot for this ant. He was originally kind of here. I still kind of like him here. Maybe we can decrease the size of this circuit board thing just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect to reality. We'll clean up our lines in a second. I might clean it up just a little bit so it's a little easier to tell what's going on with my ant. And because the ant is an insect, he has 6 legs. My friend Corey Curry is working on a really cool comic that is called Rage of Enlightenment. That's all insects. And his insect drawings put these to shame. He's like extremely good at it, but these will do for now as a rough. Okay, so we have our ant a little larger. I like that placement. Let's see it on the circuit board. Maybe I can move him to where some of the components I already drew of the circuit board are in view. Pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to go to my circuit board and erase out. This is why I made it a separate color so I could see my background. I'm going to erase out the spots that are being covered. And again, I saved this as a new file, so we always have the old version to go back to. By the way, I'm working a little destructively in multimedia. They call this destructive editing when you're working on something where you're kind of destroying it. However, me saving a second file is slightly non-destructive because you can always go back. And that's the whole point. Non-destructive editing. The whole meaning of non-destructive editing is don't destroy stuff in previous iterations. Always make things to where you can go back, where you're not damaging things and they're irrecoverable. It's just a fancy way of saying like save your files, work smart, work in ways where you can still edit things and they're not fully flattened out. It's a good rule of thumb when you're learning. This ant has his arms like kind of holding this above him, but I want to actually fix that a little bit to make that a little more clear. We might redraw him too, just a little bit, especially his face. But I'm kind of happy with that ant. He might be an ant that needs to go though. We'll see. I like him here. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, good. By the way, for the brush that I'm using, I'm just using Kyle Ultimate Pencil Hard because for the graphic novel I've been working on recently, I've gotten really familiar with this brush. It's a nice little pencil brush. So there we go. We've got our ant a little larger. Let's move him to a spot that makes sense, but is still kind of relatively in the same zone and doesn't require redrawing too much. Okay. All right, that was weird. I don't know how long I was gone. If you guys were watching this, for Tom Carnes out there, that's a first. That's never happened. Apparently, the stream cut said something like WAN connection error. I don't know what that means. So anyhow, let's get back to it. Let's get back to our ants. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a distraction. Welcome to the people watching. And sorry about the lag there. Okay, so what we're going to do is erase. Just have to keep more of an eye on my stream too. So what we're going to do is erase the background from behind this ant. We'll redraw the elements that we need. I don't want to redraw yet because I don't want to draw stuff that I'm eventually going to just not have to draw. Ant number 2 is large. Good, good, good. Okay, ant number 3 is right here. I know it's kind of hard to see with these crappy quick sketches, you know. But again, it's a rough. There's a reason it's called rough. Rough is not finished, right? Rough is rough. Ask my dog. He knows what a rough is. Oh, that's right. I'm here with the old man jokes, guys. I'm here all night. Okay. So that's like an old man artist joke. And also dog owner joke. Very, very specific. Okay, so we're going to erase out the areas here around that were parts of the background just to kind of clarify our little ant. In this case, I might kind of finish out his little mandibles or whatever, right? Elements of the background that don't need to be there. Again, a lot of these are stray lines, but they're very valuable straight lines. Okay, there we go. He's got his components that he's building. I kind of like the idea of him being back a little more. Just don't want to create tangents. Tangents are where two areas are touching. Like that's a little bit of a tangent, but I think we'll get away with it. Okay. Now we're going to erase the parts of the background that the ant is above. Now keep in mind, like, you know, there's a couple ways you could do your final on this, where you can build your characters separate from your background with color separate from your background. So it's really easy to move characters and stuff like that, depending on how quick you need to get it done. When you're working in-house, generally, you're going to be making components that you can reuse very easily that are separate from the background because you're usually making a database of like clip art. At least that's what we did when I used to art direct. Because everything had to be made in ways where it could be reused. So like if I was drawing this ant, I'd want to draw it in a way where I could reuse it a million times. I actually think this ant works better here. I actually don't like this ant's posture either, so I'm going to correct it. Would have probably corrected it on the final anyway. But I feel like he should be a little bit higher up, right? He just looked like he was breaking his back, which is funny because I have no idea what posture is like for an ant. But that's just how it felt to me. You want to go with those feelings too, because often in art, your gut is correct. So if your gut is telling you, hey, that feels a little off, and you're like, let's just go with it. No, correct it, fix it. You'll regret it later if you don't. Or sometimes, you know, you just give it a night and it's fine. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ants, larger ants. We're 26 minutes in. I'm hoping we can finish this in an hour total, but we'll see. We'll see, because the faces might take a while to kind of figure out. Okay, let's get rid of our large ants. Go back to our reusable ants. Never thought I'd be saying ants so many times. Fun part about art and illustration is I don't know if I have ever drawn ants. Like, oh wait, no, I drew an ant once or twice in art school. Now that I'm increasing the size of them, I'm thinking that some of these dudes may not. Oh, never mind. Okay, I was gonna say I'm thinking that some of these guys may not be necessary. We're trying to kind of figure out ways to aesthetically fit these guys all in. Okay, let's have one more, but in a way where we can still tell it's like a circuit board, you know? It's going to be a little hard to see as a circuit board. Okay, that can overlap his leg. I kind of like that. That's almost making like a neat composition. Okay, so I want to take this guy. We're going to erase out his legs that are being overlapped here. Cool. Now let's get my ant that I was working on here. I need to find him. If I was smart, I'd label these layers too. Okay, and I'm going to kind of move this guy over here. I just don't want him covering those components because those components make it pretty clear we're dealing with the circuit board. So what I might do is move the ant here. Let's increase his size just slightly. And then what I might do is we'll go to our other ant. Where's our other ant? Here he is. Let's erase his foot where it's being overlapped. And then let's actually go to the components. And I'm going to grab some of those components. The sad part is this is made for tech guys, so they're going to be like, that's not an accurate circuit board. Screw you guys. It's art. I'm kidding. Not actually screw you guys, but really, in reality, come on. Trying to be accurate here, but we're also trying to make a cool illustration. If you want accuracy, just grab some real ants, throw them on a circuit board, photograph them, right? Okay. I like this composition and strongly enough to where I'm almost tempted to merge these ants, but I don't want to quite yet. But what I do want to do is turn their visibility off so that I can grab some of the remaining ants, my remaining dudes. Ant dudes. Ant dudes would be a great comic book. It's like, I don't know if you guys remember this. In the 80s, there was a plethora of teenage mutant, well, late 80s, early 90s. There was a plethora of Ninja Turtle ripoffs that came out. And that sounds like a pretty rad one. Tech ant dudes. That's going to be the next one. You know what? This guy, let's flip him. Yeah. Let's flip him. So this part of art revision, kind of moving things, setting things up, it can be like it can be a drag to do, but it's kind of the design part of illustration and art, right? Is composition, working out your compositions, planning, staging, that kind of stuff. And this part of art is one of the harder parts to kind of do, especially if you love drawing, because it's very little drawing at this point. We're just kind of thinking. We're using our brain, critical thinking, right? But if you can master this part of art, and then learn the drawing part, well, learn the drawing part first would be good. But if you can master this part too, compositions, arranging, revisions, stuff like that, you're going to have a much easier time getting work because what's not useful to a client, especially in commercial art, right, is somebody who can draw really well but can't fix art to kind of fit the client's needs. Does that make sense? Because at that point, cool, you made a nice piece of art, but we're trying to sell something or sell a book or what, you know what I mean? Now, one of the fun parts about comics that I love so much about doing graphic novels and why I continue to do them is graphic novels are much more of a medium where you get to see your full vision come to life, right? You get to draw things you want to draw, get to kind of make things, make your vision come to life. That's pretty cool, and it's also pretty rare. Okay, I like this. I'm going to correct the circuit board now. We're going to kind of try to make the circuit board as believable as possible. Kind of try to keep the same sort of forced perspective of the circuit board, while also obviously not having it show through an ant that's in the foreground, right? Cool. Okay, we got ants, components of the circuit boards. And now we want to kind of work out that what the circuit board looks like, right? Underneath. There's probably like one of those little thingies. No, those things are on circuit boards a lot. I don't even know what those are called. I'm not a tech guy. That's what this video is for. It's for you guys, but it's also for my tech for teachers. And I use technology all the time in my job. I've used it professionally. Man, I've been an Adobe user for over 20 years. So I definitely am familiar. However, I would never call myself like a tech wizard, because when it comes to things like computer chips, dude, I don't know. I wouldn't know if I was looking at a computer chip or just like a piece of junk somebody pulled out of like a flashlight and were calling a computer chip that looked like a chip. I think I kind of know what RAM looks like because I have to change it sometimes on computers. But I haven't had to build a PC in years. Like there was a long time ago where if you were a poor folk, like I was, still kind of am. I mean, I'm a high school teacher, so I'm on a pretty small budget, right? But anyhow, the point being, there was a time in my life where the only way to have a computer was to build your own, because it was just like super expensive. So that's where I just had really smart friends who would tell me the components, and then I'd invite them over, buy them some drinks, and have them help me out, in building the thing, because I'm really not knowledgeable about hardware. I'm more knowledgeable about software. I guess that would be the thing. So we have our ants, we have our computer chip components starting to come together, doing that fine dance between wanting to make sure that what I'm making is clear and wanting to make sure it's kind of fun. So again, also not investing a lot more time than possibly an hour or so. And you want to build that time into what you quote on jobs, right? One of the reasons I continue to work with this wonderful client is they compensate me for roughs. Roughs are priced in to our process that we do for covers. But at the same time, the longer I spend on a rough, the less money I make on it, But the less time I spend on a rough, the less money I make on it, because then I'm having to do more roughs to kind of fix it, right? So it's like this fine balance of, you don't want to take too much time on a rough, but you also want to take enough time to where your client gets a really clear vision of what the final is going to look like. That way also they don't accidentally approve something that then they see the final and they're like, wait a second, what's this? I don't remember this. Okay, so I took the magenta, I made it black. Now we have our ants. I want to get into shading, but we can't yet. So let's get into our ant faces. Let's see here. Ant faces. So we need to try to cartoon, but not cartoon too much. Okay. That's an interesting line to go down. Okay, so let's just do some tests by going over our ant. So give him some personality. Maybe I make his head just slightly bigger. Maybe I make his eyes slightly bigger so he can kind of have an expression. I don't think they tend to like the Disney eye, you know, where you've got like the gleam and the you know what I mean? I don't think they tend to like that. Oh, I think I drew that off screen. I don't think the client doesn't tend to go for the eyeball that has like the gleam and they don't tend to go for that. They tend to go for like more of dot eye kind of thing. Expression. Do I want to keep them with the pinchers, or do we want to do like a mouth? Let's try a mouth. Maybe it'll be too cartoony though. We'll find out. So the reason I'm using magenta is it allows me to draw over my line work on a different layer, kind of see what I've got. Okay, I'm going to go a little cartoony, but keep the anatomy. So the faces are going to go just slightly cartoony, and we'll see if they like it. We can also add just a little bit more detail on it. But I'm not going to have the eyes like bulging out, because that would be very cartoony. So we can kind of keep the same sort of look here. Let's see if this is too cartoony. I'm doing this as a test on one, and then we'll kind of, if we like that, kind of move forward with another. If it's attached here, that should be attached here. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit of white line underneath just before I erase anything, just to kind of see, is that working? To give it a little more expression. Yes, but I thought I was going to have him looking like he's in thought, but he looks just super depressed now. Like, I don't think we want him to be really, like, we don't want this to feel like slave labor, okay? Like, I know it's ants and they're working, but yeah, we don't want to make this like a little ant sweatshop, okay? Okay, here we go. I'm gonna try to do a different mouth expression. Ooh, I like the tongue out. That makes him a little more like he's focusing. Let's do that. Am I doing this on the same layer, or am I accidentally doing this on my ant layer? Oh, did it on the wrong layer. It's okay, easy fix. Let's try it here, where I can actually erase what I'm working on. Okay. So I'm going to have this ant. He's kind of thinking. Okay. It's hard to read that as a tongue. Do you even have a tongue? That's probably too cartoony, actually. Never mind. We'll just go with this. Okay. There's one ant's expression. We'll use that as our template. I'm going to call that something I'm happy with. So let's go to that layer that was, where did I put the white layer? Oh, I didn't actually. That's interesting. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and delete. Okay. Let's do this. Let's go. Not using this anymore. Okay. Let's create this guy. This guy's going to be similar kind of template. Not liking what I'm doing here. So let's make him a little bigger. Bigger forehead. Okay, and then similarly, have him have his stuff. Okay, I like that. Let's go back to the line layer. Erase out parts we don't need. Oh, it's part of what he's carrying on his back. All right, let's do a couple more. Oh, wow. One of my keys got stuck while I was doing shortcuts. So again, what I'm doing too is alternating between my brush, hitting the B button, and then the move, and then the eraser tool, which is the E. So the space bar to move, E to erase, B for brush. That's the shortcuts that I'm using. So you'll notice I don't tend to go to the tool panel unless I'm selecting a tool that I don't use frequently enough to have memorized the thingamabob. That's the official term for it, the thingamabob. Let's get rid of some of this distraction stuff in the background. You know what? We'll worry about background last. Okay, ant over here. This ant is going to be gonna have his face. We're kind of going with a rounder vibe. That's a little bit of a shape like that. He's gonna be kind of focusing here and having his antennas. Ooh, we don't want that antenna crossing over. So I'm going to have the first antenna over a little more, because I don't want tangents on this sucker. Tangents are where two lines are like too close to each other. Guys, we're almost at an hour. But that's pretty cool. I think we might kind of get close to finished. We might go a little bit over an hour. But I'm pretty sure we'll be done with this stream at like 3. And Mr. Kearns, if you're watching this, it's when I do homework because I'm on such a crazy schedule. I have to sometimes work at like 2 or 3 in the morning. All right, let's see here. So we have this. I don't think he'll be watching this far in though. That'd be wild. Okay, so we're kind of doing a few adjustments in real time just to kind of make these a little more clear. This guy looks a little too cartoony, so I'm going to have this there. I don't like, I think I need to kind of adjust that to go a little more like that. So it's not like the little cartoony, like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited cheek, right? Okay. Now we're going to adjust the next ant to be a little more cartoony. Just kind of keeping in mind the other ants because we're almost using the same template. We can give them different personalities too if the client so requests. But for now, we're going to just kind of make them have this new ant skeleton. It's not really an ant skeleton, but it's not far from the reality of an ant skeleton to the point where oh, this is an interesting angle. I gotta rethink my shape here. Okay, we're thinking big, down, head's tilted down. Okay. He's gonna have his eye. Eye is gonna be here, kind of looking down. And he'll have his mouth here. Does that work? That doesn't quite work. Just a weird angle to try to get this right from. Worst comes to worst, I'll just tilt the page, but I think this kind of works. Okay, let's get that eye a little better now. There we go. There we go. That kind of works. Okay. And then they kind of have this tilt back. Starting to look like a reptile there. I think his nose needs to be a little wider. There we go. Okay. And now let's see our original. Yep, that's pretty good. Then it is actually pretty hard to tell what's going on here. Which arm is holding the component. So we're going to clarify that real quick, and I'll probably erase it out from the part underneath it. Yeah. Because he needs to be kind of carrying it with that hand and then with another hand. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to redraw his little antennae. There we go. Okay. I think that'll work. We're going to go ahead and erase out the area underneath it. Any excess lines we don't need. The areas that were a little confusing, right? That kind of clarifies it a little more. What I do want to do is also clarify this foot a little bit. So we're going to go ahead, make that foot a little more clear. There we go. Make that midsection a little more clear too. Okay. I don't know why I'm drawing magenta on that layer. But we're clearing up the ant just a little bit, right? Just making it a little more clear what's going on. Clear up the ant components here. There we go. Okay. So we got our ants slightly revised. Now let's go back here. Redo this face. This face should be more kind of our new ant character. Not too big of an eye. Oh, okay. Then on his nose, actually, we'll just kind of correct that. Let's make him have less of a mouth, like more of a nose right here. There we go. Almost like a turtle a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to make our antennas. Now, if I was like cartooning hardcore right now, I would be counting every single notch in this antenna. But since this is a rough, I don't need to know how many little segments there are in each antenna yet. Kind of didn't like that. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to kind of have this. This component's pretty clear, so let's go back down. Okay. Stream's still running. That's good. We're going to erase out the background behind it. Now we have our new cartoony headed ant. This one's not the strongest drawing. kind of want to fix him a little bit. Let's see. I find sometimes when it's late at night, I won't be on my A game drawing, you know? Not as an excuse, though. No excuses. Do or do not. There is no try, right? Okay. That kind of works. Rather have his eye kind of a little happier. Not totally happier. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to do our last but not least here. This is going to be my guy. Got it. Our new skull. It's a little wider, right? Have our new mouth. Our new eyes. Let's really correct that face now. Okay. Cool. We're getting there. And I want to do this a little wider. Almost like cheeks here. There we go. Let's fix those eyes. Those eyes I wasn't super happy with. It's interesting. It's like a component that let's make sure we're accommodating for like the nose. I think there's a bit of a nose on this ant, so I'm just gonna kind of assume the nose, but we're not gonna kind of do too much of that. Haven't quite figured out his structure yet. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's a good shape. All right, and let's give him a little bit of a thing here. Another thing here. Okay, that was just noodling. Okay, and then we're gonna erase here. Come on. Okay. Yes. Pretty good, but here's the thing. Now that I see this, I'm like, I don't like that expression because he should be looking to where he's working. And his eyes should be taking up a little more space. So There we go. Okay, fine. Fine. So now we'll just clarify that this is the bottom of the leg of the guy. Nose is going to go here, kind of. So we're going to have our eye a little more like so. That's what was missing. I just needed to kind of figure out his position. There we go. All right. And now we're going to be pretty much done with this ant. That one might be a little too cartoony. We'll see what the client says. But I think that'll do it for the fixing of the ants, although I should fix his leg here. Okay, and now we're going to do this. Make this black. Oh, I was making it all magenta. Do this. Lock this, make it black. Okay, now let's fix our background. Oh, you know what? Let's merge down. Let's go back to cyan here, because I want to be able to see what background stuff I need to fix. Okay, this will just give you a clearer idea, or give me a clearer idea of background elements I need to fix. I hope you guys can see how that color difference makes a big difference. The fake Alki on Twitch said, dude, how do I become an art director like you? I'm no longer an art director. I quit art directing, but I did that for about a decade. So I was an art director for about 10 years, and it's because prior to being an art director, I did freelance illustration and cartooning for about 20 years. That makes sense? I guess prior to the art director position, I worked in all sorts of positions, from junior designer to senior designer to art directing freelance projects to working for clients from Random House to Scholastic and stuff like that. Eventually, I just had been at it so long that I'd pretty much done almost all the work in the industry, right? I had done like storyboarding, video editing, comic books, t-shirts, children's books, that kind of stuff. So I had illustrated, a ton of stuff, and done graphic design for a ton of stuff, and worked for video game stuff and all kinds of stuff. My resume was kind of huge. And so weirdly enough, I just got to this point where there was a job opening for an art director position after my son was born. And I looked at the qualifications and I was like, holy crap, I'm like totally qualified for this. Like, and I wasn't BSing. I was like, I know all this stuff really well. And then I had also taught like college art classes and stuff. So I was like, I think I could manage people okay. And so I did that for about a decade, and it was a really cool experience. Now I work on my own projects, and then I'll do a little bit of art directing if I'm working on like a big project, but I'm no longer a full-time art director because I just kind of got bored with the position. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I think 10 years doing that, it's hard to kind of keep at it. Just wasn't fun anymore. So yeah, so now I teach like a lot of art classes for high school. And I actually love it. So I do that and then work on graphic novels and freelance for clients and stuff like that. But yeah, which is part of why I'm back in school, is to, make the teaching in high school thing a kind of permanent thing, because I really enjoy it. It's really fun to teach younger artists. So right now what I'm doing is on a separate layer. Now that we have all our art kind of worked out a little bit, I'm basically adding shadow, because there will be like, solid blacks in certain areas of the final, and this will help the client kind of visualize what the final art's going to look like, which is pretty cool. The fake Alki said, "Oh wow, that's awesome." Yeah, it was really awesome. It was a fun career, and it kind of was like the ceiling of the industry. That's kind of the top position for a lot of in-house art. And so I think if like your end game is to reach the top of the ladder in-house, that might be the career for you. I found I didn't really like the top of the ladder there. Like, I don't know, felt like filling junk piles after a while. So I'm so much more content teaching, because it's like I feel like I'm actually doing a positive thing for the world. And then when I'm making art, I get to make really cool art. Or when I freelance, at least I get to pick good clients. And I'm kind of in a position where I don't have to take every client that comes. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. All right. It's a funny username, the fake Alki. All right. Anyhow, thank you for saying that. Fake Alki said, "I'm curious if you recommend a formal education for art." I do. I think here's the thing. I think that education is about becoming a well-rounded individual and a good artist. If at the end of the day you want to make money, go into something different than art. Make mad money. But if you want to make like a living as an artist, yeah, getting an education would help. Pretty much, on Artcasters, the show I do with my friend, we always give the advice of you probably don't need art school, but you could probably learn a lot of those methods on your own. But having the mentorship of other artists and that one-on-one with teachers and also your classmates is kind of invaluable. I think I'd credit a lot of my successes in art to let's see, to who I was in school with, because we had a really incredible class. A lot of the people I graduated with ended up, with pretty wildly amazing careers in the field of art. So now I'm going to kind of pull up. Okay. This will help. Okay. So now I'm going to add tones just to kind of work on what I need to kind of get a clearer idea for the client, what the final will look like. We're going to add, some of these tones are going to be interesting, but before we kind of go into those, I'll probably do my white tones real quick. So I think now we'll do whites of the eyes just to make the characters a little more clear. And then we're going to have the component board be white. So it makes all these little extra parts kind of stand out. And again, I'm just blocking it in right now really roughly, because again, this is a rough for a client. It's not a final product. Yeah, so anyhow, I have, a lot of really cool classmates, really inspiring friends that are still friends to this day. Pretty amazing connections I made with other people through art school. But now, would I recommend a private art college? It depends on what career you want to go into. But I would say I think private art schools are way overpriced, and you can get pretty much the same teachers at Cal States and UCs. So that's what I would do. I would do, an art education, get mentorship. If you don't get education from a school system, like, just take a ton of, read a ton of books on art, talk to a lot of other artists. Back in the day, the way they used to learn art was possibly the most ideal, where they'd have like a mentor mentee kind of situation where you'd like apprentice under a master artist for years, and then you would eventually become a master artist yourself and take on an apprentice and pass on that knowledge. I think that mentor mentee thing is really valuable in art, and I think you got to seek it out where you can get it. But again, I really do think college is a formative experience. I think it's important to kind of become a well-rounded human being, and also to make more thoughtful art, and also to have a more clear concept of why you make art and what kind of art you want to make, and what's the value in art. Like, kind of getting a more sure philosophy in life. But a younger me probably would have been like, I don't know if art school's worth it. When I was younger, I think I was more focused on commercial art and the value of commercial art, which was cool. Commercial art helped me get a house. I always tell people that, like, people who are like, you can't make money in art. It's like, well, art bought my house, so there's some money there. We're just gonna try to kind of make these a little more clear, and I think that's gonna do it for my rough revision. So we took the rough, we revised it, and we did it all before 3 a.m. And I killed 3 birds with 1 stone. So 3 is the magic number here. Thank you, by the way, to the fake Alki for those wonderful questions. Thanks to people who tuned into the chats. If you're watching this after the fact, make sure you hit like, subscribe, hit the bell so we get notifications. If you're my teacher, Tom Carnes, there you go. I did a screencast. I do these all the time. If you're just tuning in, know that I do live streams showing my process, most often working on graphic novels, going from thumbnail to rough to ideation to final artwork on my graphic novel that I'm working on for Turner Publishing. And that one is called Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So that'll be out soonish, but I have to finish it first. I have 2 graphic novels out, 2 stories, and Jacob's Apartment. Please consider purchasing them on Amazon or at bookstores near you. Jacob's Apartment, you can ask your local library or Barnes & Noble to carry it. Your library is nice to ask to carry it because then you don't have to pay for it. But anyhow, if you want to support indie art and stuff like that, consider getting those. Thanks to those of you who tuned in. I appreciate it. And Tom Kearns, there you go. There's my screen share. Just letting you know I know how to do it. And that'll basically do it. I will see you guys on the next live stream. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Oh, and if you like rock music, look up Joshua Kemble on Spotify. There's a bunch of free albums that I made, and they're pretty awesome. So you should check those out. All right, guys, I will see you on the next stream. And till then, keep on. I don't end it. I don't usually sign off by saying keep on. Sign-offs are hard. Have a good day, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.